we're here. We're in the office. So this is the area where we write every day. I'm gonna do an introduction. This is Elise. Elise is working on Daggerheart with us and some other projects as well.
Hello.
And this is Rowan. She's the other game designer, and Candela, and also an awesome person. Okay, so we're here. I'm gonna be like, I guess, just sitting here all day.
Correct. Yeah, crazy.
This is kind of our job, is just to sit and make stuff. But I put a thing up for any questions you have. So send any our way. Okay, goodbye. All right, we are walking to the kitchen to get some water before our first press interview for the day for Candela. Wild times, y'all. Wild times. I saw there are already so many questions, so I'm going to start making my way through and trying to answer as many as I can in between all the work we have to do. But thank you. This is so fun. Bye. So there's been a lot of questions about the cinematic style GMing that I've been doing for Candela Chapter 2. And the truth is, it's just kind of the way I learned how to GM. I was a film school kid. I'm a screenwriter. So most of the people that I played with in like the most formative time of me learning how to GM were aspiring actors and writers and producers and directors. And so that was just kind of the shared cinematic language that we all had from writing scripts or being on set or watching movies. And so I didn't even know it was like not a thing until I sort of got in the wider space of the TTRPG world and realized that it's not the way that all GMs run games. But it's just how I enjoy telling stories, and Sierra's been really supportive. And, you know, when they asked me to GM, they were like, just GM the way that you do it. So that's what I do. So I came into CR as a producer, and I was making games on the side, but my main job, like my job was as a digital media producer for years at various companies. So I worked for shows like Shark Week and BattleBots and all sorts of, digital media spaces. And so I came in here to sort of combine my love of games and of producing and writing. And then at some point I got pulled over into the Darrington side when we were making games to help create some projects. And out of that, I got put on Candela Obscura as one of the projects to help bring to fruition. And that was sort of the pathway. And then after making the game, they asked me to come and GM. This is a great question. I was terrified. Not for any reason that was caused by anything except for just the amount of people that were going to be watching me and judging me based on how I GM'd a game that I helped build, right? The team that we had on board were so incredibly supportive, and Marisha and the whole producing team and Travis and everybody who was sort of involved in the decision-making of bringing me on to GM, I couldn't have asked for more support from them. But just inherently knowing that you're going to be put in front of a bunch of people and that they're going to be watching you, and, that you're going to be representing the thing that you've just worked on for the last year of your life to the audience. Also following the incredible Matt Mercer. All was terrifying, but I'm glad I did. So one of my favorite moments from Chapter 2 so far is the letter that Sean gets from his mother, Peggy, that Annie B picks up while she's there visiting. And the important thing to know is that Marisha wanted to write the letter from Peggy for Sean. But when Marisha sent me the letter, I also wrote another letter, which is the first letter you see in the stream. It's the one that is in Sean's head. But Marisha had no idea that a second letter had been written that was based on her letter. And I switched my letter that I made secretly with the letter that Marisha had on her desk or on her table at her spot, so that when she handed the letter over, she actually was handing over the one that I wrote. And I told Brennan he was going to be getting two letters. The first one was going to be in his head, and the second one was going to be real so that he could lean into the role play. But Marisha had no idea. This is such a good question. How much is planned? How much is not? I basically, before any session, I draw 3 boxes, and I'll try and take a photo of this. I have a notebook back home that has all the prep for all the sessions that I did for Candela, but I essentially draw like 3, sometimes 4, sometimes more boxes on the left side of a piece of paper, and then I just fill them with like what I think probably is going to be the main, like, are going to be the main beats that we're going to hit roughly in a session, and then I just write down to the right of those boxes any kind of details that I think might also be important. So I might, put a little bit of like, here's some NPC names, and here's the name of the place that they're going or whatever, and I'm just hitting like what are the story beats, and then honestly those get tossed to the wayside a lot of times for whatever's going to happen, but I generally kind of have an idea of what the arc of the episode is going to be. So I was brought into Candela Obscura when they were making the show, and they decided they want to make a game system that went along with it. And they were already experimenting with some stuff and played some different systems and tried some different things. And I was sort of brought in to give my take on what I would do with the show and with the game. And so I developed out a concept and pitched it. And that was probably, I want to say like August or September of last year. And so once I got the thumbs up from them, then it was Roman and I sort of heads down, just developing and writing and playtesting and playing and developing and writing and playtesting until we delivered the book in July of this year. So we were shooting my chapter 2 while we were still writing the book. So it's been in my head for like a year. So oftentimes in mystery games like Candela, there's this instinct to like withhold information. And I think that oftentimes that leads to GMs withholding too much information for the sake of it being a mystery, for being mysterious. But I think that sometimes leads to players not knowing what to do next. So you'll see it in the book, you'll see it in the show. One of the things that I talk about doing with mysteries a lot is having what's called a reveal. So that is a piece of information that no matter what the players roll, no matter what happens, you're gonna find a way to reveal it so that we move them along to the next stage of the investigation. Now, depending on what that reveal is and how you reveal it, that might lead them one path or another, but essentially they are never making a roll, failing it, and then getting cut off from solving the mystery. You're always going to find a way to relay the information that they need to get from point A to point B. It's just a matter of how they do it, what kind of rolls they make, and what kind of danger they get in doing it. So this is kind of the question of the century in game design. It's like, where do you start? And I think there's 1,000 different ways in. You can come up with a concept that you really like of like a world or a place and find mechanics that fit. You could start with mechanics. You could start with a feeling, a vibe. For example, in my game Icarus, which is a game about how great civilizations fall, the game started with mechanics. It was stacking dice in a single tower in the center of the table whenever you fail, and when that dice tower falls, the civilization falls and the game comes to an end. So that was very mechanically oriented. Where something like Alice is Missing, which is my silent role-playing game that's played entirely via text message and feels very like Life is Strange or Oxenfree or Firewatch, that kind of indie emotional role-playing game, that came from vibe. I knew I wanted to make something that felt like those games that I loved, and I imposed a parameter on myself, which is that the game had to be silent, which meant that it was all done via text. So it just depends on what strikes you. All right, it's art tour time. Here we go. There's this guy here, just very cool, such a cool piece. All right, we're going to continue through. There's a bunch of art down here now. The office is kind of being redone, so there's some art down here on the ground. There's that guy. There's this guy here. Oh yeah, let's see what's behind here. I don't know if you can see that down there. Oh yeah, this is really hard to hold, but I hope you see there's stuff down there. It's really cool. Okay, then we're continuing through. There's some of this here. And then there's some pieces down here that are being hung. What's that one? Oh yeah, so cool. And then we also have The Adventure Begins here. The best way to show that. The Adventure Begins. And then there's also this really cool, that's where I took the photo this morning. There's like a really neat logo here. We have some murals here on the wall. One of the most daunting tasks as a GM is learning how to run a new system. And it can be one of the most intimidating parts to actually getting a table together is like, am I ready to run this? So one of the things I'd recommend, and this sounds like a plug, and it kind of is, but it's kind of not, watch actual plays or listen to actual plays. Listening to people run the game is a great way to internalize the mechanics in play. That's why one of the most useful things for me in a book as a GM is reading through the examples of play section. So in Candela, there's a full section that is like an example of play that engages with most, if not all, of the mechanics that we made for the game. And so by reading through that section, you kind of get a sense for not only how the mechanics are built, but like why they're built that way and how they engage with each other. Okay, we're here with Rowan. This is our mythologist, another game designer here at CR, and I thought it was important to bring her in because she was one of the primary people who helped build out the world for Candela. So how do you approach world building in the system as a designer versus as a GM?
As a designer, you're building a sandbox, lots of little hooks and opportunities for people to put their own bits and bobs in. And then as a GM, you're putting in the bits and bobs. You're getting specific with your table.
So you're essentially like building the scaffolding for a GM and a player and players to use as the designers. And then when you flip into the GM seat...
What did you say earlier? You said build the scaffolding and then the GM puts in the rooms?
Yeah, they like to decide where the rooms are divided up, and they like decide what the window dressing is, and like they might put in, doors in certain places, but like they have a scaffolding to work from. And I think that we always talk about things being in conversation with each other, and essentially it's like the GM and the designers in conversation. So I'm really lucky that most of the people at the table I've played with before. Luis has played in a bunch of home games with us. Marisha and Travis, I ran Candela for a lot during its conception, playtesting, development. And then Brennan and I are in a home game with Matt and Abria and Erica Ishii, where we play games together. So I already knew a lot of them and had played games with them before, so that really helped. Obviously, Zara coming in new. Zara and I had never met, and so I had to ensure that Zara felt safe. And I think that the biggest factor in all of this is ensuring that the players feel safe while the characters feel scared. So ensuring that everybody coming in knows lines and veils on the table, X card is on the table, safety tools are there, we have conversations about everything, and then we check in before, during, and after. This makes me so happy. Absolutely go into game design, explore, play, figure out what kind of stories you want to tell, figure out what you want your game system to do. But what I would say above anything else is start small. Don't run in doing a 200-page, 300-page, 500-page book. Lasers and Feelings, Lady Blackbird, both by John Harper, great places to start. Likewise, in a similar vein, any of Grant Howitt's little one-page RPGs are great inspiration. There's a number of small games on itch.io under the physical games section that are really popular and provide good source material as an example of how to make a small game. But start small, figure out how to make the one mechanic or two mechanics that you have in the game do exactly what you need them to do, and then build up from there. I've talked about some GM guidance in some of the previous videos, so go check those out as well. But also, one of the biggest traps I see people sometimes fall into that I think as a GM you want to be aware of is that you should always be looking for ways to integrate your players' backstories or their experience, what they've gone through, what stories they have created into the mystery. So you'll see in episode 1 of chapter 2 that I took a lot of the backstory that Travis gave me for Nathaniel, and I used that as the basis for the first actual investigation that they were on, so that he would have some buy-in there. He has somebody he cares about. Also, the whole opening sequence with the train, that was all from Zara's backstory about her being a double agent for eons, and that pulled her straight into the action because she was suddenly grappling with a part of her character. So the necklace is actually a gift because when Hadestown was touring here in Los Angeles, they did a talkback after the show, and I was sitting first row because I love Hadestown, and they started talking about how in between shows or on their off nights they will play D&D in Exandria. And they were like, we love Critical Role, we're here in Los Angeles, so, you know, maybe there's somebody here that knows Critical Role. And I was literally sitting in the first row, and I was like, I work there. And so I ended up meeting them at the stage door afterwards and talking with them about D&D and role-playing games, and then I ended up running a game for some of them, and we hung out and went out to lunch, all sorts of stuff. It was really great. The cast is like all so incredible and kind, and so the last night that we hung out while they were still in town before they moved to the next spot, they brought me some merch. So that's right. This is a great question. So I think that there's a couple of answers here, right? Like, the first one is it's a horror game. It's designed to be deadly. It's designed to be scary. So inherently, there's got to be buy-in from players. If they're not down to play a game, or they're going to get hurt and they might die, then it's just not the right game for them, right? And that's totally fine. Everybody loves to play different kinds of games. But if they want to play horror and they don't want to play in something where, you know, they're feeling quite as beat on as the players in Chapter 2 have, you as the GM have total control about how many marks and scars you give out. I'm specifically going very hard on the Chapter 2 crew because we all agreed we wanted it to be scary, we wanted it to be deadly, we wanted by the end of the 3 episodes for there to be the chance of death, which means I have to give out lots of marks. I have to get people on their 3rd scar looking towards their 4th in order for us to get there. So it really just depends on the game that you want to play. I knew that I wanted to start off the campaign with a bang. I also wanted to show the players specifically that I was not the arbiter of the fiction in the way that they might be used to, meaning that, like, even in the middle of an action scene, I might describe what's happening and then ask who it's happening to, and somebody gets to make a decision that this is what's happening to their character, instead of me just putting them in a situation. And by starting the game in that way, one, we ground everybody very quickly in the world that we're in by saying, like, no, we are on the ground, we are running, there's a train, there's, you know, you're in danger, and also using Sarah's backstory to sort of tie everybody together. We realize why what's happening is happening, and they know that they have some control over the fiction beyond just how their character's reacting. They actually get to be involved in forming that narrative. All I'll say is I'm sorry for this next one. That's how likely you are. All right, I'm home from the office. Do I have a cat? I don't have a cat, but I do have a dog who's kind of like a cat. He's a pretty cat-like dog. Here, I'll turn this. Say hi, Murph. His name is Murphy. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. His name is Murphy, and he is the best dog. I love him very much. He's a scruff head, though. Look at him. The hair is so big right now. It's frankly too big. I like it when it's cut shorter, but once it gets long, it just becomes an absolute mess. But I can show you how I get it to be the mess that it is. So come with me. This is my bathroom. Those are bad lights. But this is what I use. So I blow dry it, and then I use this stuff. It's layrite cement clay. It's pretty cool. It's like a little, just gonna open it in time. Oh, against the clock. Oh, sorry. Okay. So it looks, oh no. Okay, there we go. It looks like this. It's like a little clay. Anyway, somebody used it on my hair once when I went to get a cut, and I was like, I'm using that forever. I'm so excited for you. So, yes, absolutely number 1 tip is to listen to your players. They're going to tell you exactly the kind of story that they want by the types of characters that they choose to build. So lean on that. Lean on their backstories, too. When they give you some backstories, they don't have to be long, but just enough backstory that you can then grab pieces of that and use those pieces. Find ways that those backstories could potentially tie together, that one person is related, one like NPC is related to both pieces of a character's backstory, and all of a sudden use that as your jumping point for a session, and you've got 2 players that are heavily invested already in the story that you're telling. The other thing, don't be afraid to mess up. We all mess up. I mess up 1,000 times. It's just how it goes when you're GMing. And the less you're afraid of it and the more you ask your players to work with you, to work together to tell the story, the better off you're going to be. Create a collaborative environment at the table. Bro, I'm still figuring this out. Don't call me out like this. I wish I knew, but who are any of us, really, when it comes down to it? Like, we're just a collection of atoms, man. We're not even touching the floor. There's space between the atoms of our feet and the atoms of the floor, which means we're always floating. I'm the GM for Candela Chapter 2. That's the real answer. And I'm so excited. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's really fun. I think fun's the wrong word. It's pretty sad and pretty intense, but it's also fun. I think it's fun. I'm biased. I also hardly remember anything that happened. I black out the minute I start GMing. I couldn't recall. So I hope it's fun. Fingers crossed it's fun. I love so many different kinds of games. I mean, role-playing games from, more of like the D&D Pathfinder side to like things like For the Queen or The Quiet Year or any of those kinds of more highly narrative-focused games. On the board game side, I love a good Euro game. I love a good Ameritrash game. I'm not really that picky as far as like the kinds of games that I like. It's more about the design. If I think there's something that's really inventive or really evocative about the design, if the theme is really cool and the mechanics help to capture that theme, like, I'm all in. I'm going to give a little tour of my board game shelf. Now, caveat, a lot of the games that I love, I've given them out to people to play because I love when my friends play fun games. So there's not going to be everything here on my shelf. In fact, some of my absolute favorites are not here. But we're going to look anyways. Okay, we're going to go. Okay, we're starting here 2 copies of Kites because this one we were playing so hard that the timers broke. A+ would recommend playing. Got a second copy because we like it so much. Tiny Towns is a great little game. Plays a lot of people if you want it to. Wild Style is a great real-time game. So fun. So chaotic. Wolves of Mercia is a good little werewolf alternative. Fiasco is one of my favorite role-playing games. It's so fun. We have the Die RPG, Kids on Bikes, Kids on Brooms, The Quiet Year, and the deluxe copy of Icarus. Here we have Hey That's My Fish. Hey That's My Fish is a completely underrated game. It's so good. It's so little. They just came out with a new edition that doesn't look like it's from the 90s. I highly recommend the new edition if you can get it. Village Rails is very strong. Airland and Sea, one of my favorites. Codenames, obviously a classic party game, really strong. Dice Throne, I have the whole set here. I also have the Marvel set, which we'll see in just a minute. But really good PvP. And then finally some Magic decks over here. And then Capital Lux, which I think goes underrated. It's very, very good. All right, next shelf. Starting off with some Chicken. Chicken is a silly little light game that you can play in like 5 minutes. It's so good for just sitting around a table and having conversations. Evergreen has such good production design. It's by the same person who did Photosynthesis. Same kind of theme, really strong, really thinky. Chronicles of Crime is a great little crime-solving game that you use an app for. Moving over here, King's Dilemma. I haven't played this yet. It's still in the shrink wrap. I'm so excited to play it. Fit to Print, brand new as well. Real-time game. Haven't played it yet. Really excited to. King Domino is a good little game if you're trying to get people who don't normally play board games into board games. It's really simple, really fun. Moving this way, oh god, a stack. Sushi Go, so good for parties. Welcome to and Three Sisters, both great roll and writes. Three Sisters, I think, is one of those games that just pops off of the table. Dicey is another game that looks like it's out of the 90s, and boy, is it good. It's so good. Canvas is way harder than it looks. Sagrada is excellent. X-Wing is my first modern board game that I played, and Sheriff of Nottingham is a great, great party game. All right, we're going to skip around a little bit, but starting with Jamaica, one of my first board games I ever bought, actually. It is a very good racing game, pirate game, super simple, but really great family game. Dinosaur Island, if you like Dinosaur Island, but you don't want it as crunchy, and you want to play with 2 players, this is the way to go. I haven't played Moonrakers yet. I'm excited to play that. Here, Wavelength is for those people that like Codenames. It's a little bit different. It's got great table presence. Would highly recommend it. Treasure Island is one of my favorites. It comes with a giant map that spreads out on the table, and you're trying to get to treasure before the other pirates do. It's a one versus many, kind of. It's kind of one versus many. many. It's really, really strong. Quacks at Quedlinburg is a great little push your luck game. Space Base is so good. So underrated, I think. Space Base is one of my favorites. Very, very strong. And then Just One is one of my favorite party games. It's super simple. Anybody can play it. We actually bought 2 packages and put them into one so we could play a big game. Lost Ruins of Arnak is so big. I don't know if it'll ever make its way to the table again, but it's so fun. Okay, starting out, classic Zombicide here, Zombicide Horde and Zombicide Invader. I haven't played Invaders very much. I played a lot of Green Horde with friends. We had a blast doing that. Battlelore is a war game, and I really like it. I think it's really strong. It's completely discontinued. I don't know if you can get it anymore, but it was really fun. Lord of the Rings, Marvel Dice Throne, Star Wars Legion, all really good. Ankh, which I've only played once, I think, but I really liked it. Arc Nova, huge game, absolutely monstrous game. Really complex. I don't know if it'll ever make it to the table again, but it's very good. It's just very complex. Scythe is very strong, good area control game. I really love the art. Again, one of those, I don't know if it'll make it to the table, but it's so fun. Just got Zoo Tycoon from a Kickstarter, Escape from Dolce's, really fun cooperative game. And then this one down here is Blood on the Clock Tower, one of my favorite werewolf style games. So I just literally went down to my car because I had games left in my car from a game night that I never brought up, and I was like, these are some of my favorite games, they're not even in the cabinet. So I'm going to show you. Sorry for those of you who don't like board games. This is like probably so boring for you, but we're going to do it anyways. Okay, this is Acropolis. Oh god, this is Acropolis. Acropolis is so good. It's like a tile placement game, making a little city. Anyway, it kind of looks boring. It's really strong. It's really fun. It plays so quick. It's like, I don't know, what, 20 minutes? Such a good little game. Okay, the next one is Wormholes. It's basically what if you had an Uber in space and you're using wormholes to jump around yours and other people's wormholes, and you're jumping around delivering people. And lastly, Guild of Merchant Explorers. So fun. So it's like a roll and write kind of, but it's a big box. Really, really strong. Really like it. Highly recommend. Okay, we're back on Candela. Sorry for the games rant, friends. I love games so much. If you want more games, if you have games questions, send me games questions. I'm so down. I'll put a games question thing on this. Anyway, how did I come up with the war flashbacks? The war flashbacks, I knew specifically that we were going to have some because of the players' backstories, and I wanted to really dig into them. And so, in an actual play, sometimes differentiating between what's happening in flashbacks and what's happening in present time can be wibbly wobbly. You have to make sure you really tell your audience what's happening, otherwise they might think that they're actually suddenly on a battlefield, right? Because TTRPGs can be weird. So I wanted to ensure that visually, when they went into those spaces, that I reinforce that, not only for the audience but also for the players, so that they would realize they were in a different space and things were kind of dreamlike and memory-like, and it just added to the atmosphere, and our sound design team came up with it, and it was beautiful. Okay, as promised, for my indulgence, I'm leaving a board game question response thing here. Give me a board game that you love, and I'll give you another board game that I think is similar that you might also like if you like that game. I might be wrong. And if I am, I apologize, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my absolute best, because this is just a small fraction of the board games that I own and that I love. These are just the ones that are in the closet currently. So, so send me your games. Send me your games you like, and I'll try and get you some recs if you want. You don't have to. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you don't like games, I totally understand. But if you want to, you can. Okay, fine. So one of the things that we cut from the book, but I actually think it's for the best, is we used to have this idea that we were going to put a map of New Fair on transparent or semi-transparent paper that, when you lift it up, reveals the map of Old Fair below it, so you can see where New Fair sort of sits on top of Old Fair. And that's really cool, except in playtesting and in development, we discovered that it was actually better to not know where things are in Old Fair, to keep it a mystery, because it is a mystery game. This is an ancient city, and if everything's just mapped out, there's no mystery anymore, and the GM is much better off just pulling in the pieces of Old Fair or places that are inspired by the things that we've put in the Old Fair section in areas where it makes sense, where the players are, where the story is. And so by not being beholden to a map for Old Fair, we actually create more of a mystery around it. I think it actually helps GMs do their work better. Yeah, so before I was at Critical Role, I made a game called Alice is Missing. This is it right here. It's a silent role-playing game played entirely via text message. There's like a 90-minute soundtrack and timer that you also put on while you play, and it's designed to evoke the kind of genre of like Life is Strange, Oxenfree, Firewatch, that indie emotional kind of game. So, that being said, I think the best people to play it with are people who like that kind of game, what we call Type 2 fun, like fun that is a little darker, a little bit sadder, okay with experiencing emotions, right? Okay with exploring tragedy, and honestly, the same people who like Candela, if you like Candela because you like getting into your emotions, if you like Chapter 2 of Candela, which is like very much getting into the emotions of all of these different human experiences that we have, like, if you like that, then I think that you'd like Alice. So that's who I'd look for. All right, going back to Hades Town. I could talk about Hades Town all day, so I'm happy to. Look, honestly, all the songs are really great. I love the Hades Town in general, but if I had to pick, I think that All I've Ever Known is probably on near the top of my list. Also, any of the epics. Like, literally pick epic 1, 2, or 3. I'm happy with all of them. Yeah, I think those are probably in my top, but honestly, I could put that album on shuffle and listen to it all day. It's so good. This didn't even come from the board games question, and it's here. I'm so excited. Yes, absolutely. I just played a great co-op game last night that I really love, and it's called Sky Team, and it just came out at Gen Con this year, and my god, it's so good. I have some co-op games that I think are really strong. I have some co-op games I'm like, iffy on. Sky Team just absolutely took the cake for me last night. It's one of my new favorites. It's 2-player co-op. You're trying to land a plane. Sounds boring. Really fun. You can't talk. Well, you can talk, but you can't talk while you're placing stuff. So, like, there's a really cool back and forth where, like, you roll a bunch of dice and you place things and you're, like, looking at each other, trying to figure out what, are you going to place the thing here, or am I going to place the thing here? And you go back and forth until the round is done, and then you can talk again, and then you can strategize and plan, and then once you roll dice, you have to not talk anymore. And it is excellent. Hatchet Games, I think, is who it's by, but highly recommend. How would I feel if there was possible romance at the table? I would feel like that it's coming in the next episode. Shh. I could talk literally all day about this, but I'll try and keep it short. So with Icarus in particular, I knew the resolution mechanic was going to be the stacking of the dice. When the dice got too high, the tower fell and the civilization fell and the game came to an end. So that core mechanic was already kind of done. But it was like, how do we do the rest of it, right? So I had to go research, like, what makes civilizations fall, and also just, like, what makes up a civilization in general. And so I watched lots of documentaries and read books and did research and, did a deep dive into all of that, and found all the, like, little pieces that I thought would be really neat to include in the game, and then played some games that I felt like mechanically were really inspiring for me and the kind of game that I wanted to make, things like The Quiet Year or For the Queen, and those kind of had the same vibe of what I was going for. And so I took that and evolved on it, and just kind of played with the mechanics until I felt like I had something that captured the tone and feel and genre that I wanted. All right, friends, that's my time. That's all that I have. It's 9 o'clock. I have to give up the Instagram account for tonight so they can get it all prepped, because Travis Willingham is taking over the account tomorrow, and I cannot wait to see what he does for Halloween. I'm so excited. But in the meantime, I'm going to screenshot a bunch of the questions I didn't get to. I'm going to screenshot. I had so many board game rec questions that came in that I didn't get to answer in time, so I'm going to save all of those. I'm going to be answering more questions on my personal Instagram account. You can find me at Spenser Starke. If you have any other questions, Candela questions, board game RPG questions, come over, say hi. I'll put up a little question thing in the next couple of days, and yeah, would love to continue chatting with you over there. So don't miss Travis tomorrow, and don't miss the finale of Candela Obscura, The Circle of Needle and Thread, that's coming up on November 2nd on both YouTube and Twitch. It is a wild episode, and I can't wait for you all to see it. So don't miss it. We'll see you there. I'll see you in chat. Goodbye.